Hey guys, Sean here. Today I'll be profiling my Live Twin Runick Spright deck. Live Twin Runick Spright is a really fun deck. It is a really good mishmash of engines, Live Twins, Runick and Spright. What each archetype has in common is that they're all level 2s, so there's some great synergy there. Probably my favourite way to play a Spright build. So of course I want us to focus on being a Live Twin / Evil Twin deck. However, the Runick cards and the Spright cards really take this deck to a really high level. So without further ado, let's get right into it. To begin with, we have 3 copies of your Live Twin Lil-la. Your best starter of the deck is a better starter than your Ki-sikil. On summon, if you control no other monsters, you can special summon a Ki-sikil monster from your deck. So Lil-la is a better starter than Ki-sikil because Lil-la can actually summon Ki-sikil Frost, which is a better card to have in rotation because it serves the purpose of having a Ki-sikil monster in rotation, but it also can be banished from the graveyard to get your draw. So that's why having Lil-la as your starter is much better than having your Ki-sikil. But both cards work perfectly well as being starters. Of course it's a level 2, so it has great synergy with your sprites. So we definitely max this out at 3 copies. Next up, 2 copies of your Live Twin Ki-sikil and 1 copy of your Live Twin Ki-sikil Frost. So Ki-sikil has the same effect as your Lil-la. If you summon it and you control no other monsters, you can special summon a Lil-la monster from your deck. However, the only monster you'll be able to summon off this is your Lil-la, while Lil-la is able to summon your Ki-sikil Frost, which, while it's in the graveyard and you control an Evil Twin monster, if your opponent adds a card from their deck to your hand, you can banish it from the grave to draw a card. So really good in just getting more advantage. Draw power is really important in this deck, because we're playing the Runick package. Any one draw could be a Runick card, and that can really make our turn go so much better. So I run this ratio here. You can run 1 Ki-sikil and then 1 Ki-sikil Frost, but I like to have the 2 copies of Ki-sikil and the 1 copy of Ki-sikil Frost, but you can adjust the ratios however you like. Next up, 3 copies of your Spright Blue, your best starter in terms of your Spright engine. You can special summon this if you control a level or rank 2 monster. It's an inherent summon, and on summon you can add a Spright monster from your deck to your hand. So all your Spright monsters have the gimmick where if you control a level or rank 2, you can just special summon them from your hand. So if you have one of your Live Twins on field, which are both level 2, you can special summon Spright Blue for free, and then you can add any Spright monster from your deck to your hand, which can then be special summoned because you control level 2 monsters. So 3 copies of blue is essential. Next up, 2 copies of your Spright Jet. Not as important as your Spright Blue. What Spright Jet does is that on special summon, you can add a Spright Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand. The only Spright Spell or Trap we're running in this deck is Spright Starter. We're not running Gamma Burst because we're playing the Runick cards. We're not really going to have a battle phase. We don't play Runick Smashers because the Runick cards can deal with our opponent's cards well enough. And we don't play Double Cross. Even though it is a really good card, we don't really need it. Our boards are good enough on their own. But of course you can add whatever cards you like. But I think 2 copies of Jet is good enough. We don't really need the 3rd copy. I think 2 is plenty. Next up, 1 copy of your Carrot and 1 copy of your Red. I do think you can bump these up if you want. This is a TCG build. We don't have access to Spright Elf. We can't just get these cards back from the graveyard. So I can see you running maybe 2 copies of Carrot, 1 copy of Red, or vice versa. You can up the amount, but I think 1 and 1 is good enough. Same effect as your Spright monsters, special summon them if you control a level or rank 2. Carrot is a spell trap negate, and Red is a monster negate. When your opponent activates a spell trap or monster, they contribute another level, rank, or link 2 monster to negate the effect. And if you tribute an Xyz or a link monster, you can destroy the card as well. So really good like main deck kind of negate cards. Again, you can run them at higher ratios, but I think 1 of each is perfectly fine. Next up, for the only hand trap we're running in this deck, we have 3 copies of Ash. It is difficult to find room for more hand traps because we're playing so many Runick cards, but Runick cards are essentially hand traps anyway. I just think Ash is the most versatile hand trap, so I think it's one of the best hand traps you can run if you're only going to run one of them. But of course you can replace this with whatever hand trap you want, so this is a very flexible spot in the deck. That's it for the monsters. Onto the spells now. We have a lot of spells. First of all, 3 copies of your Live Twin Snitch. It's a continuous spell. On activation, you can add a Live Twin monster from your deck to your hand. And then if you control an Evil Twin monster, anytime your opponent knows a special summons a monster, you gain 200 life points and your opponent takes 200 life points. This can definitely put pressure on your opponent. It's not too much, but if your opponent is summoning a lot of cards, it can really build up. You can get a good bit of life points back and your opponent can take a good bit of damage. Really helpful as well for going for game because we do play Runick cards, and the whole downside of Runick cards is that we don't get our battle phase. So once we finally do get a chance to attack, it can be a lot easier to OTK our opponent. So it is a really nice effect to have, but of course the main effect is just being able to add any live twin monster you want, so definitely we max this out at 3 copies. Next up, for the Spright spells, we have 3 copies of your Spright Starter. It's a quick play spell. When you activate this card, you can special summon a Spright monster from your deck, and then you take life point damage equal to the attack of the monster you summon. Not really a big issue. Keep in mind, this will come up in time, so be careful using this card if you're coming close to time. But being able to special summon any Spright is fantastic. Special summoning Spright Blue activates its effect. You can add any Spright card, and then you can easily special summon that Spright monster you added because you control the level 2 monster. So a great starter and a great extender. Really good at the end of your combos to get out something like a Spright Red or a Spright Carrot to have a better end board. So we definitely max this out at 3 copies. Onto the Runick side, we have a lot of Runick cards in this deck. Let's begin with 2 copies of Runick Fountain. It is currently at 2 in TCG. Your most important card in your Runick engine is a field spell that reads, you can activate Runick spells from your hand during your opponent's turn. So it turns all of your Runick spells into basically hand traps. And once per turn, when you activate a Runick quick play spell, you can target up to 3 copies of your Runick spells in your graveyard, put them at the bottom of your deck, and then draw that many cards. So a fantastic way to get your Runick cards back into the deck and draw into even more cards. You can draw into extenders, you can draw into even more Runick cards, which can help you disrupt your opponent even more. So it's just an insanely strong card for the deck. We definitely max it out and it's very easily searchable. So yeah, 2 copies. Next up, 3 copies of your Runick Tip, your main searcher of your Runick engine. All of the Runick quick play spells have the effect where they can special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck, or they have an additional effect. So what Runick Tip does is that you can add any one Runick card from your deck to your hand, and then you banish the top card of your opponent's deck. All of the Runick quick play spells involve an effect where they banish the top cards of your opponent's deck, so it can be a really good way to just disrupt your opponent. They can lose key pieces to their combos if they're running a lot of garnets. Even if you use a bunch in the turn, you can just get rid of a lot of their starters. It really puts a lot of pressure on your opponent. But of course the most important effect is just to be able to add any Runick card from your deck to your hand. Each Runick card serves a different function, so being able to search whichever Runick card you need is insanely good. Next up, 3 copies of your Runick Freezing Curses. Same effect as your Runick Tip, where it can special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck, but the other effect is that you can target an effect monster on the field, negate its effects until the end of the turn, and then you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. So essentially an imperm or an effect veiler. It's really good. Keep in mind that all your Runick cards are able to special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck. So if you have Runick Fountain on field, you can always just use your Freezing Curses to special summon a monster even if your opponent has no monsters you can interact with. You can just special summon an extra deck monster, then trigger your Fountain to draw more cards. So that's the good side of all of your Runick cards. They're just always usable. Great extenders as well, but Freezing Curses of course, negating a card on the field is insanely good. Next up, 3 copies of your Runick Destruction. You can target a spell trap on the field, destroy it, and banish 4 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. So we have inherent back row removal in this deck, which is great. And I did forget to mention that whenever you activate a Runick Quick Play, you cannot conduct your next battle phase. So definitely keep that in mind. That is the one downside of your Runick cards, that you're not able to use your battle phase the turn you activate them. However, we definitely play much more of a grindy deck. We don't need to win in one turn. We can definitely outstall the opponent, which is great. Especially since we're banishing a lot of our opponent's cards, we can really dwindle down their resources. So you're always going to win the grind game when you're playing a Runick deck. But yeah, 3 copies of Destruction, really good. Next up, 3 Flashing Fire. Target one of your opponent's special summon monsters, destroy it, and then banish the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. I think Flashing Fire and Freezing Curses are probably your best Runick cards. Just very versatile, so of course 3 copies of your Flashing Fire is very good. Finally, 3 copies of your Runick Slumber. Not the best Runick card, but for like the ratios in the deck, you do want to run about 18 Runick cards. So Runick Slumber is just like the next best card we can run as a playset. What it does is you can target a monster on the field. The next time that monster would be destroyed by battle card effect, it's not. Also, it can't attack, so you can stop your opponent's monster from attacking you. And of course, then you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Doesn't come up all the time, but even just having an extra Runick card in your deck, you can always use the effect to special summon your Hugin, which you can use as an extender or a way to trigger your Fountain. So it's a good card to run, definitely run out of 3. And finally, the 18th card, we have Runick Dispelling. It is a quick play. What Dispelling does is that when your opponent adds a card from their deck to their hand, you can discard a random card in their hand, then banish the top 2 cards of their deck. So it's decent, doesn't always come up, but it is the 18th card for our Runick engine, so it is probably the best card you can run out of the remaining Runick cards. That's it for the main deck. We'll go to the extra deck now. We run 2 copies of your Hugin and 1 copy of your Geri. These can only be summoned by using the first effect of your Runick cards. You just get special summoned out of the extra deck for free. Hugin is your most important one. It is level 2, so it's very important for your Spright combos. And on summon, you can discard a card to add your Runick Fountain from your deck to your hand. So insanely good, Runick Fountain being one of the most important cards in the deck. Being able to search it is fantastic. And it also has a protection effect. If a card you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can banish this card instead. So a really good protection effect, can protect your Fountain, can protect any one of your monsters. What you can even do is activate a Runick card in response to your opponent's destruction effect. Chain will resolve backwards, you'll special summon your Hugin, your opponent's effect will resolve, but you can use your Hugin effect at resolution because it's a continuous effect. So you can just protect anything at a whim, which is really good. 2 copies is great. It can recycle itself if it gets sent to grave by card effect, but most of the time you will be using this as material. And your Geri is very good. It is level 4, so it's not always usable. But on summon, you can target a non-quick play Runick card in your grave and add it back to your hand. So that will always be your Fountain. You can get back your Fountain, which is really important. And when this card is destroyed, you can destroy a card in the field, which is really good. Happens during damage steps, so it's very difficult to play around. So I think this lineup of Runick monsters is really good. Next up, for your Spright monsters, we have 1 copy of Gigantic Spright and 1 copy of Spright Sprind. Gigantic Spright, really important for the deck. Is a rank 2, needs 2 level 2 monsters. You can detach a material from this card to special summon any level 2 monster from your deck. And then for the rest of the turn, you and your opponent can't summon monsters besides level 2 monsters. This might seem like a restriction, but it's actually a blessing. Your opponent will not be able to use cards like Nibiru or Bestials against you after you activate this effect. So if you activate Gigantic Spright as your 4th summon, your opponent won't be able to Nibiru you for the rest of the turn, and they won't be able to interact with your live 2 monsters in the graveyard with their Bestials. So really fantastic. It can stop you from summoning certain monsters in your extra deck, but for the most part, it is not really an issue. It can get you pretty much any card in the deck, so fantastic to run. You can definitely up this if you want, but I think the extra deck space is a bit tight, so I think 1 copy is just fine. Next up we have Spright Sprind. On summon, it can send a level 2 monster from your deck to grave. We don't run any of the Nimble cards in this deck, but what you're going to do is you're going to dump something like a Live Twin Lil-la or Ki-sikil, and then you can bring it back with either your Evil Twins, or you can bring it back with your Muckraker. So it's really good to get into your Live Twin engine if you don't draw into it. It also has the effect where when a monster is summoned to the field, you can detach a material from an exile you control and return that monster to the hand. So a really good disruption effect. It can be triggered when your opponent summons something or when you summon something, which is fantastic. And one thing I forgot to mention about Gigantic Spright is that it can be summoned using a Link 2 as well as a regular level 2 monster. So you can go into Spright Sprind first, dump something, and then use Spright Sprind as material to go into Gigantic Spright, which is really good. So I think this is all you need for a Spright package. You can definitely run more Gigantic, but I think 1-on-1 is good enough. Onto the Evil Twins, we run 2 of each. We have 2 copies of your Evil Twin Lil-la. It needs 2 monsters, including a Lil-la monster. During the main phase quick effect, you can special summon a Ki-sikil monster from your graveyard, which is really important for your main combo. And if this card is summoned while you control a Ki-sikil monster, you can target 1 card in the field and destroy it. So a really good destruction effect, really good at bringing back cards from the grave as well. This mainly works in combination with your Evil Twin Ki-sikil, which needs 2 monsters including a Ki-sikil monster, and has the quick effect where you can bring back a Lil-la monster from the graveyard, and if it's summoned while a Lil-la monster is on the field, you can draw a card. So as you can see, the synergy between these 2 is really good. While they have each other on the field, you can draw cards and pop cards. Their effects are quick effects, so you can do both the drawing and popping effect on your turn and your opponent's turn, and being able to bring themselves back is really good for the grind game. Also really good for your combos, just to be able to extend, and it's really cool in combination with cards like your Spright Red and your Spright Carrot, because they can tribute off one of your Ki-sikil or Lil-la monsters, and then your other one can bring the other one back, which is really cool. So definitely a great combo to run here. 2 of each of your Ki-sikil and Lil-la. And 1 copy of your Evil Twin Trouble Sunny. It needs 2 monsters, including an Evil Twin monster. It has a quick effect where you contribute it to special summon 2 Evil Twin monsters from your graveyard. So if both your Ki-sikil and your Lil-la have been outed, you can use the effect of your Trouble Sunny to bring them back. And since they were both summoned at the same time, you can trigger both of their effects to pop a card in the field and to draw a card. We can't always go into this card because it's link 4 and most of the time we're locked into level, link and rank 2s. But when you can get this card out, it's very good. Also a really good disruption on your opponent's turn because it is a quick effect. So yeah, 1 copy is really good. Onto the miscellaneous monsters, we have one copy of your Muckraker, which needs 2 monsters to be able to summon. Cannot be used as link material the turn it's summoned. You can target a fiend monster in your graveyard, special summon it and discard a card. So really good to be able to get back some of your Evil Twin or Live Twin monsters that are in your graveyard. It does lock you into fiends, so if you use this card, you have to commit to your Live Twin lines, because you won't be able to summon any of your Runicks or your Spright monsters. But it is really, really good. It also has the effect where if one of your fiend monsters would be destroyed, you can tribute a fiend monster instead, which can definitely come up. Really good at protecting your Evil Twins, so one copy of Muckraker is really, really good. Next up, one copy of IP. IP is fantastic in this deck. We're locked into level, rank, or link 2s anyway, so this is a great card to end on. During your opponent's main phase, you can quick effect Link Summon, so it can be a really good disruption, and whatever monster you summon will not be able to be destroyed by card effects, which is really, really good. Great disruption when you combine it with cards like your Knightmare Unicorn. You can also run SP. SP is great, but Unicorn is more of a budget option. Unicorn is also a fiend, which can help you if you're fiend locked. But what Unicorn does is on summon, you can discard a card to target a card in the field and return it to the deck, which is fantastic. Great disruption. You'll be doing this on your opponent's turn, so you will not be locked into your level, rank, or link 2s. For the most part, your SP would be a better option, but if you're on a budget, Unicorn is fantastic. So this is a pretty good package to run here. Finally, for the last 2 link 4s, we have one Knightmare Gryphon and one Unchained Abomination. Knightmare Gryphon is a link 4 fiend, so you can climb into it using your Live Twins. If it's link summoned, you can discard a card to set a spell or trap from your grave to the field, but you can't activate it that turn. Being able to bring back certain cards from your grave can be useful, maybe a starter. Even a Runick card would be really good. But the main purpose of Gryphon is that whilst on the field, special summon monsters on the field cannot activate their effect unless they are linked. You can set this up in such a way that your Gryphon will be linked to your Live Twins or any of your Spright monsters, and it can really stop your opponent from being able to activate anything, which is fantastic. Really good floodgate. Not always usable, but in certain matchups this is fantastic. And your Unchained Abomination, again it's a generic link 4 fiend monster. If a card on the field is destroyed by card effect except its own, you can destroy a card in the field. If a card is destroyed by battle, you can destroy a card in the field. And during the end phase, you can destroy a card in the field. Really good at just clearing the board in certain situations. Can destroy up to 3 cards in a turn, which is fantastic. Along with your Evil Twin Lil-la and some of your Runick cards, you can destroy so many cards in the field, it's insane. But just like Knightmare Gryphon, not always usable, but it can be a really, really strong option in the deck. So definitely run these 2 cards here. So that's it for my Live Twin Runick Spright deck. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think this deck is really fun. I still think it's just as good as it was before. It is not seen as much recently, but it's still a fantastic deck. The Runick cards are insanely good. Being able to recycle your Evil Twin monsters is great as well. And of course the Spright engine was recently reprinted, so it's very cheap. The whole deck is pretty damn cheap. The Runick cards would be the most expensive, but they're not even that bad. This is definitely a very, very good budget deck that you can build. If you're looking to build this deck, we do have a TCG player affiliate link in the description, so if you buy cards from there, it directly supports the channel. And if you want to see these videos early, we do have memberships, so make sure you check them out. So thanks for watching, let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to see a combo guide for this deck, let me know, and stay tuned for more content.